Ready whenever you are.
Yes, good. So I thought there might be a mystery appearance from Mark.
You think?
I give him prayer, and I'm going to ask for a minute for Bill Powell. We know that.
Yeah, sure. No. I saw him, and we had a moment in Chick-fil-A like a few months ago, right? And we talked about it, and he was actually nice to me. You know?
Yeah. Just for a minute, I don't really.
And I saved the Burtis house for him. Yeah. A lot of irony there.
I think everybody's here except for Mark. I think everybody's here except for Mark. I'm sorry about your mom.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back tomorrow. Sucks. I thought she was gonna come through, and then she went to a place, and then they took her back, and she's got an infection. I didn't know it was that. I thought it was just building up her strength.
We'll be praying for her.
Yeah, your mum.
My mom's a pain in the butt.
Yeah. My mum was too, but I'd like that pain in the butt.
I know, me too. Love her to death.
Yeah. Okay, how you guys all feeling? Ready to go? The special meeting of the Annapolis City Council on Monday, January 27th, 2020 will be called to order at 7 p.m. At this time, would everyone willing and able please stand for the invocation given by Alderman Pound, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I would ask that we pause for a moment of silence out of respect for William Rufus Bill Powell, who passed away in late December. Bill grew up on the Eastern Shore, but he was a longtime resident of the city of Annapolis. He was a great-grandson of Captain William Burtis, after whom the house at the foot of Prince George Street was named. Bill was a Vietnam veteran. He was a highly decorated veteran. He helped save his crew when his ship sank during the war. He sank in shark-infested waters, and Bill put his own life on the line to save a number of people in his crew. He was actually part of a U.S. Army diving unit, but he was assigned the whole time when he was abroad to a Navy ship and to small boats that cut through the waters of South Vietnam. Bill loved this city. He came here many times with his wife, Mary, but he also came and testified on his own. He died from lung cancer. He was a wonderful guy, and I think he's deserving of a far better tribute than I can give. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Now, dear Lord, we thank you for this gathering. We pray that you guide us and that we satisfy the needs that need to be met during the course of this meeting. Please strengthen us to make difficult decisions, and we pray that those decisions we make will be fruitful. Please guide us so that this meeting can be productive, effective, and decisive. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. That was a wonderful tribute. Mm-hmm.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Mayor, may I take another point of personal privilege? We lost another outstanding member of our community last week, Karen Feldman, who was one of the founders of Seeds for Success. Yep. She worked in our community tirelessly and particularly as it relates to the children. And she will be sorely missed, and I think we just should send our blessings and well wishes to her husband, Babe, and their family.
Let's just take a moment of silence for that too, shall we? Thank you. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Buckley?
Here.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Here.
Alderman Payon?
Here.
Alderwoman Pendell Charles?
Here.
Alderman Finlayson?
Present.
Alderman Rodriguez? Alderman Gay?
Here.
Alderman Savage?
Present.
Alderman Arnett?
Present.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the first item on the agenda.
Approval of the agenda, Mr. Mayor.
This time I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
A second.
Second.
All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is petitions, reports, and communications, starting with an update from the mayor.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Before we get started tonight, I would like to take a moment to recognise two people who are leaving city government after tonight's meeting. The first from my office is Adriana Lee. She's been the Hispanic Community Service Specialist. Adriana has done an amazing job, reaching deep into the Hispanic community and bringing new voices to city government. She has organised events like the Day of the Dead, the Flower Festival, both of which highlighted the rich cultural heritage and contributions of the Hispanic population. She has also worked with every department in the city to ensure that the city services are delivered equitably. Adriana is going to the Comptroller's office to continue her work on Hispanic outreach, this time for our state. We will miss her, and I know that she will do a great job for the people of Maryland. Thank you, Adriana. I'd like to give her a round of applause. Tonight is also the last meeting and the last day on the job for City Manager Teresa Sutherland. Teresa has done an amazing job of wrangling city finances to get us on the right track. She has ensured that each department is professionally run. She has worked long hours and countless hours. I'm sure that HR would say that she has worked her 2 years, but honestly, she's put in so many hours that if we were clocking her time based on a 40-hour week, she's probably served the city for a decade or something like that. Thank you. In any event, Teresa has ensured that we are on strong footing moving forward. You all know that I have a lot of ideas and things that we want to accomplish in my time as mayor with this city council. In order to do these things, we needed to get our finances straight. That included leaving us with a strong finance director, right next to Teresa there. Let's hear it for Jody. Much of that work has only been possible because Teresa has been dogged in guiding the process. Under her stewardship, we have a number of things coming online. We have an RFQ and RFP for Hillman, contracts in place for the new DPW building. The resiliency planning is underway, and a plan for City Dock, and plenty of other things. Today was her last day in the office, and of course this morning everyone in city government got an email from Teresa. We were able to turn the city health insurance fund from a deficit position to a healthy financial one with a surplus fund balance. That is no small feat, and it means that all city employees who make a health care contribution are getting a little vacation from premiums for the next 7 pay periods. Let's hear it for that. It doesn't tell the whole story of how Teresa's stewardship of city dollars and departments have benefited city residents and employees, but it's an example of her expertise, work ethic and heart that are on her last day, that she is delivering real dividends to the city. Now, Teresa, if that CPA in the private practice gig doesn't work out, I've heard you sing and you have a lot of musical talent. We haven't karaoke together yet. As you know, I do know some people around town who own venues where you could play as a fallback. If you're thinking of getting a second career and you're getting sick of the bean counter thing, come and see me. So best of luck, Teresa. We love you. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you. On Thursday, we have our community engagement session. Learn about city programs, city priorities, and One Annapolis initiatives. There will be food and beverage served. It will be right here in the City Council chambers from 6 to 8 p.m. on Thursday, January the 30th. It's open to the public. Please come out and engage. We got word last week that Eric Brochures from the Department of Planning and Zoning applied to receive a $19,000 grant from the state of Maryland for census outreach. This is important for all of us that we get an accurate count. It means representation from city residents and resources for the city and state government operations. Speaking of Census 2020, there is a hiring event, the first of many that will happen around the city and county. There is one at 11 and noon at Pip Moyer Recreation Centre. The census pays well. It offers job flexibility. These jobs aren't permanent, but they will go for a good part of the year. And these jobs are not just as enumerators or census takers. They need office managers and data folks as well. It's a huge hiring effort. They are looking for bilingual workers too, so don't let language be a barrier to anybody who is listening. It's Wednesday, 11 a.m. and noon at Pip Moyer Recreation Centre. If you want to know more, please come out on Wednesday and contact Anne Arundel Workforce Development Corporation. That's it. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Just wanted to follow up, and I'm sorry, and just again, follow up on your statements in regards to Teresa about how proud we are of you. I came in just in the last 5 months, and you've just been so helpful, and helping me finding my way in this role, and I'm just so thankful for you. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Alderman Gay. Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's the required administrative submittals by the city manager.
All right, this is your last submittal.
Thank you. You said city manager submittals?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I was sidetracked. So the first is a fund transfer for the Harbor Master's Office, $7,700 from supplies to contractual services to pay for repairs on the vessel Dahlgren. The second is a $1,500 fund transfer from contractual service to supplies in planning and zoning for a ground resistance tester for an electrical inspector. The third is a $5,000 transfer from contractual services to supplies to pay for uniform shop rags, mat rentals, and safety shoes for employees in Public Works. And the last is a $9,900 transfer from salaries to legal services in the Office of Law. As you know, we go back and forth between salaries and contract services depending on vacancies and outside attorneys that are hired. And that's it.
Thank you, Teresa. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the reports by committees is next.
Alderman Pindell-Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Public Safety Committee will be meeting on next Monday, February the 3rd at 4 p.m. here in council chambers.
Alderman Finlayson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Rules and City Government Committee will meet on Tuesday, February 11th, 4 o'clock here in council chambers.
Thank you. Alderman Gay. Next
The Housing and Human Welfare Committee will meet Tuesday, February the 18th at 3 o'clock p.m. in the council chambers. That's also my birthday, so please come to that meeting.
Right.
I'll make a cake.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the Transportation Committee, hi Rick, is meeting Thursday, February 13th at 6 p.m.
Anybody else? Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the next item is on the agenda is comments by the general public. Those that are speaking shall have a limit of 3 minutes.
So during comments by the public hearing tonight, you may not speak on or items that are not scheduled for public hearing tonight. Legislation that is scheduled for public hearing tonight, which will have its own separate hearing, is accessory dwelling units, 039-19, 038-19 Housing and Community Development Committee, 0-1-20 Exempt Services, and 0-2-20 Youth Development Commission. So the first speaker is Steve Rogers. Please come forward, Steve.
Good evening, Mayor and Alderman. I thought I would share tonight with you 4 anecdotes that came from our year-long appeal that we did on the Eastport Shopping Center. And one of the little threads that came out of that was in my circulation through the city halls, I tried to talk to a number of employees that would be working on the various adequate facilities issues. And I found several of them would start talking with me and then say, well, I probably shouldn't talk to you because I'm worried about my job. There was a member on the Board of Appeals in the deliberations on the 7th of January that said, well, maybe we don't have to follow this portion of the code. Maybe we can kind of modify it because it's not topical anymore. That's a very dangerous statement, and the chair quickly tried to cover his tracks and negate his statement. But that alone is a really bad sign of what's going on in the city. Also, one of the adequate facilities that failed the scrutiny and failed in my presentation was stormwater management. There was a defect in the stormwater management facility that got revealed to me in a meeting with the mayor. And I suggested to the mayor and his staff that, you know, I'm going to come full bore. I'm going to press this issue, and you're probably not going to like it. Well, lo and behold, nothing happened. Public Works didn't offer it up as evidence. And in a way, they were withholding exculpatory evidence. So I twisted the Public Works Director's arm, got him to give me some video of the pipes, and it's devastating, the condition of those pipes, both private and the public pipes. And that's good to know, and we should probably be doing that around the city so we can build up reserves, so we can take care of our facilities. But withholding that information and them knowing about it when we met with the mayor, and I warned him, I wasn't threatening him, I was warning him that, you know, I'm going to really look at this hard. And I did, so I kept my promise. And then the planning and zoning director decided to reinvent the definition of impervious soil. Every document I can find, every manual, the National Soils Manual has one description, and the planning and zoning director decided to call it something else. That's a major, major mistake, and it was being twisted by the words that they used. So I guess what my point is, we would like to see the city and I represent a bunch of people, not by name, but by the group who has a similar feeling, that we'd like to see more transparency, more openness. If you do have a defect or you have something that doesn't comply with the code, or you can't manage that because the code is defective, like the schools thing, you have a conflicting code with the county, let's talk about it. Let's get it on the table. Let's get it. It's much better to talk about it and not have appeals and variances and all this garbage. It's very negative. Lots of
Thank you.
citizens want to participate. As the mayor knows, everybody's trying to fill committees. There's a lot of positive energy in the community. And we are a voting bloc. And I believe there's an undercurrent to put together voting blocks to drive forward openness and participation. We'd like the fear factor to disappear. You're keeping doors locked. You're not letting us get into different offices. We ought to be able to get in. We ought to be able to talk. We ought to be able to discuss things. Those are the ways to solve things, not have to go to appeals and go to court. That's nonsense.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
I'm sorry to go over time.
Yep.
We're willing to help. I've given you a settlement plan. Everybody else in the community wants to do that kind of thing for you.
Yeah. Thank
But
you.
you've got to be open.
Yep.
Thank you.
We are. Thank you. Mary Biro is next. I saw her in the back there. Mary, out back. Okay, she's signed in a couple of times, so we can go back to Mary. Jim Wiley's next.
I have comments on the choice for the planning, the Director of Planning and Zoning. Is this the appropriate time?
Yes.
Okay. Again, my name is Jim Wildy, and I live at 403 Chesapeake Avenue in Eastport. How do we envision the future of Annapolis? More importantly, how do we maintain and improve the quality of life in our city? This last question should underlie all decisions on new legislation and development. Unfortunately, for too long, the city's Planning and Zoning Department has seemed to favor high-density development with little regard for the effect that the development would have on the quality of life. For example, the Forest Drive Eastport sector study envisioned significant higher density development along this corridor. This is despite the already congested and dangerous intersections along Forest Drive. Allowing high-density development in this area puts the cart before the horse. We would need substantial infrastructure improvements, especially to address the congestion along Forest Drive, before significant development occurs. As you probably know, Forest Drive is a county road, and the county has no plans for improvements in this corridor, so we have a difficult path to achieve infrastructure improvements. We are fortunate that after a significant citizen objection, the council did not approve this plan and is back with planning and zoning for revision. The bottom line is that we need to address development based on the realistic funding available to address the failing transportation infrastructure. There are other examples of planning and zoning's emphasis on development, but suffice it to say that many involved citizens share my opinion that the Planning and Zoning Department needs a culture change to be more responsive to the needs of the citizens, with an emphasis on the quality of life and not just development for development's sake. I would also like to point out that there is research that indicates that the cost to provide services to high-density development can exceed the increased revenue generated by the development. So high-density development may not be the magic bullet to solve budget problems. In regard to choosing the Director of Planning and Zoning Department, we need a director who can lead this cultural change. I recognize that there have been recent improvements in citizen input to important policy and development decisions, but this improvement came about largely because of activist citizens. While I believe that an outside person would be best situated to implement a culture change, I hope that whoever is chosen as director fully recognizes that Annapolis is more of a town than a city, and that development needs to be driven by quality of life concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Mary Biro. Next up is Chris Blucaster. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I'm Chris Bucheister, live at 5 Wagner Street. I wanted to build on that openness and transparency we just talked about a little while ago. We just finished the City Dock Action Committee plan. It was 7 months in the work. And we had a community meeting the other night, and we asked our alderwoman, why is the garage and the City Dock development plan, why are those two RFQs tied together? If you could give me an answer, I'd appreciate that.
So it's one of the financing mechanisms for it?
Yeah, we're concerned about creating a taxing authority when you're giving up the garage to somebody else, and that already pays for our transportation funds. But I want to know why they're two tied together. Can you answer that? You don't have to answer it
We
if
can
you
have
don't
an offline
know.
meeting anytime, yeah, but anytime you want.
Go ahead. I'm
can
on
have an
3-minute
offline
clock,
meeting,
so
yeah.
let's go.
So I can't, this is not the forum. It's your chance to speak
All right.
here, so yeah.
All right, and there's a MOU that's being passed around between some very powerful people who are on your staff, as well as some Democratic donors that want to take the DNR docks and control them. I think that this is inappropriate. It hasn't been discussed with the citizens at all. And you're giving up another stream of revenue that could support the city dock. So those are my two things I wanted to talk about. I would like to build on that theme of openness and transparency. I wanted to thank Dr. Nash for coming and speaking to our group the other night. She took a lot of extra time. I don't necessarily think you should line of sight promote people. I think you should hire people from outside of the city. There's some talent all around this great country of ours that's probably yearning to work in a great town like Annapolis. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. We did a 9-month search also for that position. National search. Anybody else? Mary Barrow, are you out there? All right. Okay. Anybody else like to come forward and speak? Seeing no motion in the chamber, I declare the public hearing closed. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is approval of the consent calendar. The items on the consent calendar include appointments of Robert A. Drews to the Board of Appeals, Karen Thymer Brown to the Heritage Commission, Timothy P. Leahy to the Historic Preservation Commission, Carl Korst to the Building Board of Appeals, John J. Swartz to the Building Board of Appeals, and reappointments of James Praley III to the Alcoholic Beverage Control Board, and Lawrence Harris as a reappointment to the Alcoholic Beverage Control Board.
Mr. Mayor, there needs to be a correction in the name. It's Robert Dews, not Drews. Please.
Is that okay? Yep.
What about the legislature?
The next items are, after the appointments on the consent calendar, are the legislative actions. First readers, O320, Fire Prevention Code. Second readers, R320, Transit Safety Plan, and R420, Eastport Forest Drive Communities and Governmental Agencies Task Force, and that's the end of the consent calendar.
So we've made that correction for Robert.
Move approval of the consent calendar with that amendment.
Second.
Got a second? Thank you.
Second.
Rob, seconded.
Any objections?
I'm sorry.
So all we did, we just correct the spelling for Jews. Yeah. Good to go. So we've got a motion to approve the calendar and a second. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
Aye.
Alderman Gay?
Aye.
Alderman Savage?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Aye.
Alderman Payon?
Aye.
Alderwoman Pendell Charles?
Aye.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Aye.
Consent
Ayes have
calendar.
it. Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is public hearings continued, beginning O3919, accessory dwelling units, for the purpose of allowing accessory dwelling units in all zoning districts that allow single-family detached dwellings, establishing use requirements for accessory dwelling units, adding certain definitions, making stylistic changes, and generally related to accessory dwelling units. It's continuation of the public hearing.
Okay, we have just one speaker lined up now. That is Steve Rogers. Please come forward, Steve. Thank you.
Steve Rogers, 515 4th Street. I'm not sure if anything's changed since the last hearing, but I did want to reinforce the concept that if you take an old building and you want to turn it into a dwelling structure, you're going to have some, in my view, you're going to need to have some method by which to inspect the building, certify it able to support life by the code, and if it doesn't meet the building standards for structural, heat, electrical, whatever, you're going to have a way to make a list of deficiencies and hand it back to the applicant and say, if you do all this, then we'll certify this for accessory dwelling use. But because garages, second floors of garages, and I'm not talking about inside a house, but if you're talking about an attic in a house, that's the same situation as the garage. The attic floor joists are the ceiling joists, which are typically about half as strong as the regular floor joists in the other floors. And I know that because I designed a building for HUD once. And so I think as part of the Planning Commission process, I would like to see this go back to the Planning Commission, if it hasn't already, and have them develop these nooks and crannies of what needs to be done, because I think the cart is before the horse.
Did you finish, Steve? Any other stuff? Alderman Annette wants to ask you.
I just think it's totally inadequate for what the mission that you're trying to achieve, and you got to go back to the drawing board. You ought to form a committee of the architects, engineers, whatever, and building inspectors, put together some type of thing that makes it safe.
Yep. Well, if you could stay up there, we asked. This is the process. We still are. It still is in the Planning Commission's hands. Alderman Annette first, and then Alderman Gay.
So I'd like to point out that Mr. Rogers did testify at the first Planning Commission hearing on this, and he was not only well received, I'd say it was fair to say the commissioners were averse in asking for more information from him on these technical aspects. But speaking of technical aspects, and I'll direct this to the city attorney, I believe that Title 2132 really requires that before this body have a public hearing on this legislation, that there has to be a completion of the Planning Commission process and a recommendation from the Planning Commission to us. And that has not happened. I know the Planning Commissioners are planning on talking about this again at their February 6th meeting. I also know that they've asked for a lot of information from the planning and zoning staff. I have no idea whether that's forthcoming. But make no mistake, this is, for many, many reasons, an important piece of legislation. And a lot of people are looking at it. And so I was going to ask, and I think maybe at the last meeting, I did ask that the public hearing be continued to the first meeting in February. But I would ask the city attorney whether maybe we oughtn't stop having public hearings before the council until the Planning Commission finishes its work and makes a recommendation to us. And that again is in 2132-020. Again, I wanted to thank Mr. Rogers for his testimony at the Planning Commission. It was very helpful for them, and I found it useful as well.
So do you want to recommend keeping the public hearing open?
Well, I think it hasn't been appropriate for us to have the last public hearing or this public hearing per the code. So I'm not sure. I think we should have a public hearing or two after we get the recommendations from the Planning Commission.
Okay, we'll wait on that. We'll get an opinion from the city attorney. Thank you. Alderman Gay was next.
Thank you.
You had his hand up.
I've been doing jumping jacks.
No, they were right next to each other. Alderman Payan. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. thank you for your testimony. I understand that you have questions about the structure of many of these, or at least what we think some of these will turn out to be, but you're pretty outspoken on a number of issues. How do you feel about allowing these in every zoning district where residential houses are allowed?
I don't see a problem with it as long as you don't have density problems. But I think it's been totally unaddressed is the social issue. There's a social aspect of having, whether you're going to force people to rent to low-income people in your backyard, or whether you're going to, as a homeowner or landlord, are you going to have the option to rent to who you want to rent? The way the codes are written now in renting and tenants, you basically, if people qualify, you're supposed to rent to them. So
why wouldn't we? If they qualify for the housing, why wouldn't we rent to them?
Well, there might be some druggies or long hairs that you don't want in your backyard.
And you know the most shocking part of that statement? The second most overdoses in the entire city comes from Ward 8. So the druggies or whomever that you think may be coming from a different ward are in your backyard already.
Okay, well, I'm not going to raise my voice. I'm not going to raise my voice when I talk to you. So please don't raise your voice when you talk to me.
Okay, Alderman Payon has the floor.
I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And
thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Alderman Gay.
So this was my problem with the legislature from the beginning, because you have all of these people from Ward 1 and 8, just attacking the legislation because it's the not in my backyard attitude. It's not about the parking. It's not about the density issues. It's about them not wanting people to be in there, like as he just said. And I think that we have to get over that at this point. I thought that we fixed that in the city. I thought that we fixed that in the county. We're really trying to make strides to make sure that Ward 6 and 8 can get over this hump of, the racial disparities and the economic disparities, and hear comments like that druggies may be the ones buying it just because we're advocating for affordable housing. That it is disrespectful.
Okay. I used to have long hair as well. Mary, please keep it down. Thank you.
So I was just trying to broaden the discussion, which is an issue, and if we can't ignore it, we should address it, openness, and we should be able to discuss it civilly. But I'm just trying to point out that it's a complex issue, and we can't, to do social engineering with a city code may not be appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mary, you're signed up. You got 3 minutes when you're ready.
What's the topic?
You'll find one.
I got my business cards. I'm looking forward to passing them out. Here, I don't know how the system works, but Hi, my name is Mary Byro. I live at 280 Hilltop Lane, Unit J, Annapolis, Maryland, 21403. I've resided in Annapolis about 23 years. I came here very poor, and I got food stamps. And I thank God for being poor in Annapolis. I thank God for being poor in Annapolis. I learned a lot. Let's see, housing. And not in my backyard. Well, the backyard, gut bucket. I don't know how many people in Annapolis know what gut bucket is, but I know what gut bucket is. And I know people from gut bucket. And oh my gosh, some of those people are so wise. Does anybody, young man, I look forward to meeting you. I met your mother one day when I was really stressed out. She was so gracious and kind. And you've got a wonderful mother, and I have admired you for a while. You know where Gut Bucket is? Oh, does anybody on the city council know where Gut Bucket was? Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay, well, Gut Bucket was an extremely poor area of Annapolis, and there wasn't water, there wasn't electricity. Anyway, I'm not going to digress on Gut Bucket, but I will talk about the elitist attitude I see in this community. I'm going to start with the churches because I'm a member of a church on West Washington Street, and as a member of that church, my understanding is that one of our basic things we're supposed to do is help the poor. I call it Jesus 101. I have been calling out some of the churches in this town who I have seen neglect Jesus 101. I have gone to some of those churches over and over. They're predominantly white churches. Not all of them are neglecting their job. There's some amazing white churches in town that are really stepping up for the homeless, and I have called them out. But I have seen this response when I have tried since 2017 to get help for when I was helping two, you know who they are, Mayor Gavin, two elderly homeless men. It doesn't matter their color. I reached out to a church and I asked for help as a woman helping two homeless men. And I reached out to a predominantly white church, and I've got evidence that they have done this for a couple of years, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. This is why I'm just tired of it. So I'm continuing to do my fight against some of the cold-hearted, predominantly white churches I see in Annapolis. I will continue to do that. I believe, I haven't met you, Tierney, Alderwoman Tierney. I believe you're connected with one of the churches that is actually doing a good job, and I'm happy about that. I look forward to meeting you someday. I've got other items to talk about, but I thought I'd start with that. It's very important we look at what these churches are doing in town. Just because they say they're churches, they ain't good.
Okay, thank you.
Let me know when I can talk more. I've got a little bit more. I'm doing good today.
You get 3 minutes to that. Anybody else like to come forward and speak on 039-19? We recognize this man.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, it's always a pleasure, as I said recently, to come back and see you all. I appreciate the opportunity to a few comments on Bill 3918, and I apologize. I left the house without my hearing aids this evening, but I thought I heard Alderman from the 8th Ward, Alderman Arnett, talking about the order of the hearing vis-a-vis the Planning and Zoning Commission. And I really do feel that this is premature for you all to be hearing this ordinance. Back in my day, I know it was a specific requirement that before the city council had a hearing on anything to do with a planning ordinance, that the Planning and Zoning Commission had to finish their work and provide a written recommendation to this body. And then you would have your public hearing, and everybody was on a level playing field. The public and the and the city council were on a level playing field because we all knew all the preliminaries. And we had had a chance to have input at the Planning Commission to try to get the Planning Commission to fine-tune what had originally been proposed and to make your lives a little simpler at the public hearing, because you wouldn't hear all new ideas thrown at you, and it would greatly accelerate the legislative process. So I don't want to get into a lot of ins and outs of this specific ordinance tonight before you all. I intend to be down at the Planning Commission on February 6th and talk in greater detail about some of the provisions of this ordinance that I think need to be better structured. So I hope indeed that is the game plan as far as this ordinance moving forward, that the Planning Commission will come forward with their recommendation, and then we'll have a public hearing where I can come back and speak to what the Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended and get the legislative process moving forward. So rather than get into a lot of details tonight, if you can just give me some assurance that what I've just laid out is indeed how things are going to proceed, I'll save a lot of your time tonight, and that will make you all very happy. Probably will make my wife very unhappy, because I'll be going home and talking to her about other matters of the day. So if I've got that assurance and I see your heads bobbing affirmatively, I'll just shut up and sit down and go home. Thank you.
Keeping the hearing open, and it is before the Planning Commission now. So,
Mr.
Alderman Savage.
Should we just postpone it until after the hearing, until after the Planning Commission? Or do you want to keep it open until after the whole?
Arnett made a motion at the last meeting to stay open until the first meeting of February, which is February the 10th, so it's automatically open.
And so at the meeting on February the 10th, which is obviously after the Planning Commission meeting, which is the 6th, by then we'd have our amendments and everything prepared, and we'd be able to move forward with a new version of this, correct?
That is the plan.
Okay, awesome.
Alderman Arnett.
It's not clear that the Planning Commission will finish on the 6th, and certainly not clear that they will have their recommendation done. Usually they send the recommendation off to a subset of the committee to write it up, and it's approved at the next meeting. It would be very rare for them to have the meeting and send it on to us without having their findings written up and approved by the Planning Commission.
Alderman Finlayson.
Yeah, so I guess process question. Could Alderman Arnett withdraw the motion? Is there a motion on the floor? There is not. So could we make another motion that this would come back after the Planning Commission's deliberations have been sent to us? Okay. I think that's what Alderman Savage was getting to. I don't know why you just didn't say motion.
Worded much better than I.
Yeah.
Alderman Tierney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To address Mr. Hammond's concerns, could I have clarification on the process that existed? What's that? That apparently there was a process that existed when he was here that said that it wouldn't come for public hearing until the respective commission had their review. Is this something that has changed in the procedure, or no?
2132.020.
Saying that it. So why was the public hearing scheduled?
Let's get some clarification from the city manager.
The city code requires a public hearing. It requires it to go back on the agenda if the Planning Commission hasn't acted within 180 days. That's when it's required to go back on the agenda. But the code requires a public hearing. It's either 45 or 48 days, I don't remember, from when the bill is introduced. So I don't know what it was when Mr. Hammond was an alderman, but the city code requires a public hearing within 40-some days of when an ordinance is introduced. No. The public hearing is required within 48 or 48 days, whatever it is, period. When it goes back on your agenda for action, legislative action, is after 180 days if the Planning Commission hasn't acted.
And how many days has it been with the Planning Commission now?
I don't know, but it's been, the time period has passed for the public hearing. Is that correct, Regina?
Okay.
So you have a motion on the floor?
Yes.
And when was it introduced, Alderman Gay?
January the 8th, I believe.
Right, so it's been more than the 40-some days. So this is the next meeting after that deadline, so therefore it's on the agenda for public hearing.
January?
May I think part of the confusion is usually when it's not a very complicated case, the Planning Commission can hear it and give their findings. They have chosen to continue their deliberations on this bill. And so we're out of sync with our normal timeline.
I think you're exactly right. I think that's
Okay.
what caused
Well,
this, the
Sheila's
extension.
Motion, get us in.
Oh, so,
Okay, and it's, so do you want to repeat your motion?
So my motion is that we table this legislation until after we receive the Planning Commission's recommendation.
I second that.
Okay.
Question.
Alderman Gay had his hand up first.
Yeah, so, okay, I understand what the alderman from Ward 8 has seen in the past, and he's saying that this is rare. However, what if they are able to deliberate and get us the information we need by February the 10th?
That still
Okay,
works.
okay, perfect.
Well, but part of their process, they deliberate, and then it usually takes, and Dr. Nash could speak to this, takes a little while for them to actually put it in writing. It's not a verbal sending it to us, so I think we would like to see it in writing.
Okay. So we've got a motion and a second. Alderman Savage?
Yeah, I'd just like to officially, I guess, request the law office after the meeting, if you take a look at the code. I sent you the code section in Title 2, 2.16.90 that does seem to say that the legislation should go to the Planning Commission after first reader. It doesn't specifically say talk about the public hearing, but if we get some information after the meeting.
And, Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
The public hearing language is found in 216-180. The mayor shall schedule a public hearing on each ordinance passed on first reader by the city council. The hearing shall be advertised as required by
So we don't
law
have
and
to
shall be
sort
held
this out
within
now.
48 days following its passage on first reader.
We don't have to sort this out now. Can we just talk about it after the meeting? We'll talk
So
to
we're
the law
just
office.
clarifying that she's correct in that. We'll get an opinion from the city attorney. We've got a motion on the floor in the second. I think everybody sounds like they agree on it. So I'm going to take a vote on it. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Let's have it. Go on to the next thing. Mr. City Attorney. Oh, it's actually, so that is on the public hearing. So we're going to leave that open. O-39-19 is going to stay open till we get all our findings. Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is public hearing on O-3819, Housing and Community Development Committee.
Mary, you're signed up to speak. Come forward. We're on public hearing on Housing and Community Development Committee for the renaming of the Housing Community. Okay, no worries.
Wait. Can you make it real? Can you do like a real synopsis real quick?
Yep. For the purpose of renaming the Housing and Community Development Committee, clarifying certain powers and functions, and making stylistic changes. All right, thank you. Anybody else like to come forward and speak on O-38-19? Okay, I declare the public hearing on O-38-19 closed. Any more? Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is public hearing on O-1-20, exempt service for the purpose of correcting certain exempt service position titles.
Anybody like to come forward and speak on O-1-20? I declare the public hearing on O-1-20 closed. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is public hearing on O-2-20, Youth Development Commission. For the purpose of establishing a Youth Development Commission, creating certain definitions, identifying responsibilities and composition of the commission, and generally relating to the Youth Development Commission.
Anybody like to come forward and speak on this? Okay, sounds like a great idea. I declare the public hearing on O-2-20 closed. Seeing no motion. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is legislative actions, first reader, beginning with R-6-20, Director of Planning and Zoning, Dr. Sally Nash, for the purpose of expressing, confirming the appointment of Dr. Nash as the Director of Planning and Zoning and consenting to compensate the Director.
So is there a motion to adopt R-60-20 on first reader?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Alderwoman Tierney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say a few things. Dr. Nash attended the Ward 1 Residents Association meeting last week, and she put up with a lot of grief. Everybody is still raw and disappointed with the short-term rental legislation and the lack of enforcing the comp plan, et cetera. So there was this kind of emotion. And I was included in that. And so after the op-ed yesterday, I did some hard thinking, and I'm a data person, and I looked at the code and I looked at the facts about Sally, and I just want to read what I found is she's worked for the city of Annapolis since 2006, 14 years, first as a planner and then for the last 7 years as chief of comprehensive planning. She has served as acting planning director not once but twice, first for 11 months in 2015 and for second time for the last 9 months. She knows the city, she knows the neighborhoods, and she knows the community. She knows all of us on the council, and she does identify solutions, and she's respected by her colleagues with the city and also by planning professionals throughout the state. She's volunteered to do this knowing what is ahead, the myriad challenges and issues that the city faces in the new decade. And what I learned also is that she's been doing 2 roles at the same time, and one of them is I think more critical when you talk about quality of life, and that's the comprehensive planner. When you look at the code for the director of planning and zoning, it's very administrative. There's a lot to do, and she has to coordinate a lot of things, and there isn't that macro look at the city. In fact, I don't know who does that as far as the comp plan and implementing it, but I believe it should be this comprehensive planner, which we will now have a vacancy on. So I think our efforts on quality of life and implementing the comp plan should be in this position that will be vacant now because of Sally's promotion. So I ask that you look at Sally without emotions. Everybody has their own emotions about the development and the facts, and look at her fairly and deserving of the job. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Pendle Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of comments, well, one particular. Basically, Dr. Nash has been serving in a deputy role on and off over a period of time. I sent my comments to my colleagues on the dais, as well as to the Eastport Civic Association, Greater Parole Community Association Coalition on yesterday. And basically what I said was, for almost 12 years, I served as Deputy Division Chief in the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office. It was a large division. We had 20 attorneys, 15 support staff, and we handled over 30,000 hearings a year. I was the deputy chief. I had a chief. On many occasions, the chief and I did not agree, but she was the chief. Whether it was policy, whether it was management, whether it was human resources, whether it was staff, there were disagreements that we had. So in many ways, I know personally that the deputy chief oftentimes has very little say. You have to go along with what the chief says, otherwise you're out the door. But I equate that in many ways, and I don't know the behind the scenes, but my surmising is there have been times when Dr. Nash has not necessarily agreed with the chief. I would guess nobody's going to agree with someone all the time. So anyway, I'm willing. I have no qualms at all about giving Dr. Nash an opportunity to be our chief. We may see a large, huge difference. But my thing is, I know from experience how it works. And so, Dr. Nash, I'm going to vote for you. I have all the confidence in the world in your abilities and your capabilities. We had a meeting the other night down at Pitt Moyer. I was very encouraged by what I saw and what I heard. And so, therefore, you have my full support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alderman Gay was next.
Whatever she said. No, but seriously, obviously taking into account what has been said by a number of our constituents, but as Ellie mentioned, I think some of the issues that we are bringing to the table, quality of life, neighborhood character, all of those things, I think that is in the role of the comprehensive plan moving forward. And something that we should get serious about and finding a qualified candidate to run that and guide it in the way that our constituents would like to see. I agree, just based off of the work that the HR department has been able to do and verifying that her experience and her education qualifies her for this role. So I don't see any reason why I would not vote for her. And I look forward to working with you to reshape this department and, work with our constituency and some of the issues that they have with the planning department. I don't think that's too much to ask for. And you've already shown that you're willing to do that. And I really, really appreciate the work that you've done. So thank you.
Alderman Finlayson?
Yes, I thought we were on first reader, but I guess we're not. So there's that process. Where's Mr. Hammond? I've known Sally, I guess, for 13 years now. And I have encouraged her over the years. On more than one occasion, she has stepped in when we've lost our planning director. And she has done it with, she's the consummate professional, regardless of what she's had to face in some of our communities. We tend to think that we have to go outside to find the best that there is. I believe, and I'm the employee advocate to the end, but I believe we grow our own, and we have the very best right here with us. And so I've encouraged Sally privately, and I am totally supportive of her publicly. I wouldn't even read the articles in yesterday's paper because I thought it was offensive and hurtful, and it didn't need to be. And Sally isn't the first department head who's had to face, wrath from the newspaper. It's unfortunate. It does not have to be that way. So I, too, totally support Sally's appointment as our planning director.
Thank you. Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I also worked with Sally, Dr. Nash, for probably over 10 years in various capacities, I suppose, at this point, and have gained quite a bit of respect for her. We worked together on the 2009 comp plan when I was on staff to get some of the environmental components into that, and most recently worked together on the critical area legislation to make that into what's proven to be probably the strongest critical area in the state at this point. And that was because of Sally's involvement in that and her openness to those things. And so I do have complete faith in Sally. But I also, though, do think that the public needs to hear more from administration, and also I think perhaps in the future by Dr. Nash. Hopefully we'll have an opportunity maybe at the next meeting, because I do think they need assurances and that some of their concerns are being heard. Whether or not they're valid or not, I think is a separate argument, but I think we need to be able to say we're hearing from the public and taking steps, because I think Dr. Nash would I think she needs an opportunity to be able to speak to her qualifications and to speak to, and both of you, your vision for the department, which I think once it's laid out there will be in line with I think the expectations of the public. And I just think there's an opportunity we have here to really all get on the same level, the public and the council and everybody. So,
Alderman Payon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with a large part of what my colleague from Ward 7 just said. I've worked with Dr. Nash and without fail been certainly satisfied. If we haven't always agreed, but satisfied if not happy at the results. I also have a close relative who was in the same field as Dr. Nash, knows Dr. Nash, has worked with her, and speaks very highly of her. And to be honest, I put him out to do some sniffing around too, and he did so, and it's all good. However, the one group that we've left out of this equation is the public. and I don't think the public really has had a chance to comment tonight, so I don't think it's appropriate that we vote tonight. There's a really good chance I'm going to be supporting Dr. Nash, but I don't think it's a good idea to go forward tonight, and nobody's made that motion yet, but I think that it's probably good that that hasn't happened, and we'll vote on it either next time or in late February, however it's. Okay, first meeting in February? Yeah, so let's keep it on first reader and go from here.
Anybody else?
I mean, it's pretty obvious, yes.
I know, sorry about having this discussion on first reader, but I think we just want to set the groundwork for the vote. But one quick question, what is the path forward for filling the vacancy for the city planner? I guess that's addressed to you, Gavin.
I think, I'm not sure if.
I'm sorry, what was the question? What's the plan to fill a vacancy?
To fill the vacancy.
We would advertise it to fill it, like we would any position that was vacant.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a civil service positions. Is there something I'm missing here?
Yeah.
Okay. No, thank you.
So we, as a city council, have to write the legislation to create the city that we want, so Sally can do her job based on what I'm just one vote. We have to come up with the sort of city that we want through this process. So Sally will do the job we tell her to do. That's my opinion.
She will do the job she think is best.
What's his name? Okay, we're going to vote. Ready? All those in favor? It's on first reader. So all those in favor of R-6-20 on first reader, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Ayes have it. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is R520, University of Maryland, Baltimore study on the health effects of air traffic noise for the purpose of expressing the Annapolis City Council support of Maryland Senate Bill 184 and House Bill 310.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Alderman Savage.
I just give a little bit of context to this. This came up at the last Environmental Matters Committee. We received a presentation from Mary Reese, who is on, I forget the name of the body, but it's, did you recall, Alderwoman? There's on a body dealing with FAA and local regulations, I believe, with air traffic.
Yeah, it's some acronym.
Yeah, but the bottom line is with the Federal Aviation Administration's new traffic control technology, we're seeing a significant increase of air traffic over the Annapolis Neck Peninsula. And it seems like the federal government hasn't really taken into consideration some of the potential impacts, be it from noise or pollution deposition. And so there is a legislation on this in the General Assembly to require that the University of Maryland look into some of these impacts. And because this is impacting, I know typically we don't do this kind of thing, but when you see the map and this is clearly impacting residents of the city, we thought it was important to step up, to get involved. And Alderwoman Tierney led to get this drafted at the law office pretty quickly. And I don't know if there's a motion. Is there a motion to suspend the rules also?
There will be after that, yeah.
Okay. Because the legislation is coming up into the committee pretty soon. A couple days, I think, actually.
And Alderman Arnett had his hand up next.
So it's not just the change in concentrating the flight patterns, which brings with it more traffic, more noise. They've also lowered the altitude requirement below 5,000 feet, which means any unburnt jet fuel does not have a chance to evaporate before it hits the ground, hits our yards, hits the water, and gets introduced into the environment. So, this change has been long in the making. It happened under a previous administration with no opportunity for public input. They've been adamant and resisting it. So this is an effort to try to roll back the process a little bit and get some more input.
Alderman Tierney's next.
Yeah, I just want to add thank you to my colleagues, but the impetus behind this, and thank you, Michael, for thank you for putting this on first reader and not in consent. The state is asking. Well, I'll read you the state bill, and what the objective of this legislation is to show hopefully unanimous support for the state's initiative. And their bill, and I'll read, requires the University of Maryland, Baltimore to study the health effects of air traffic noise on communities near Baltimore Washington International Airport since the implementation of this revised routes. They call it Next Gen, and they're asking to evaluate the health outcome of this and put in their budget an appropriation of at least $130,000 for the purpose of carrying out this study. This has also been magnified because BWI has also signed up Prime, the airplanes that deliver Amazon, and there's a contract for that, so it does increase more of the density. And I tell you, I know they hear it affects Eastport, but just coincidentally, I went to Glen Burnie Walmart to get these gingerbread houses or whatever, and I'm in the parking lot, and every 8 minutes or so, these planes are like right overhead. And so then you say, well, where do they go? And so we don't know the answer, but this should be studied because of the detrimental effects. So thank you.
So Alderman Finlayson was next, and then Alderman Gay.
Yes, I'm reading this legislation, and I was looking particularly for the cost implications. Because it is asking them to put it in their budget, and then it's also asking the governor to put funding in his budget. So do we need, a copy of our resolution is going to go to the governor as well as the state officials. Do we need to say anything about the funding? They can approve this, but if it's not, there's no funding attached to it, then it'll go nowhere. So I'm talking to the sponsor.
Yeah, can I answer that?
Well, Alderman Tierney, if you want to answer that, you can. Is that what you said?
That's a good question, and I asked Mary what specifically this legislation needed to say, and it was really just to support the Senate bill. We didn't have to address the financing, but it is only one amount. It ultimately will go to the governor for a $130,000 request.
That's not in our legislation, though.
No, nor does it. It doesn't need to be. That amount might change or something, but so we're just agreeing with the initiative to study the health effects.
Okay, as long as it's covered.
Okay, Alderman Gay was next, and then Alderman Payon.
Yeah, I just want to one, be added as a co-sponsor to this, and then two, to Ross's point. I'm sure we all seen the video about how serious this is, of the Delta plane in California going over the playground, the elementary school playground, and literally dumping that fuel across the entire playground and school. So this is urgent, and it could be happening in our community. So I fully support this.
Thank you, Alderman Payon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to see a copy of Senate Bill 184 and House Bill 310. We don't, in fact, know what it is we're being asked to endorse. It says a few things here, but I, for one, am not used to giving my support to something that I haven't even read. And that's what we're asking for here. My neighborhood is right near the flight line going into BWI from the south, most places from the east, and a few places from the northeast. Invariably, from the south, the planes go up the bay. They make a left turn at Bay Ridge, go up the Severn River. Now, airplanes don't make 90-degree turns, so it takes a while. By the time they're over Admiral Heights, well, they're not really over Admiral Heights, they're over the Severn River. I certainly agree that this is potentially perhaps a major health issue, or at least it could be. And I'm familiar a little bit with the Delta situation in Los Angeles, and nobody wants to see that happen here. I don't know at what altitude the Delta flight was traveling at the time. I don't know a number of things. I was told the last time I checked was that airplanes, when they come up by my house, are roughly 8,000 feet above sea level. It's about 1,000 feet for every mile to the airport. And as the crow flies, we're probably 8 to 10 miles from the airport in Admiral Heights. The planes go up the Severn, over Severna Park, and depending on which runway they're landing on, they may come up, may go out to Gibson Island, make a left turn, come up Mountain Road. They could go directly over Severna Park, over Route 97 and in. There are a lot of different ways that they do it. I just think I need more information before I lend my support to this, even though I agree with what it is they want to do. I wholeheartedly agree with that, but I just don't know what it is I'm being asked to support. I'm not comfortable doing that without having a bill in hand that I can look at and review and make sure it says what people say it does. Thank you.
Tyranny was next.
I just have a question. Is it okay to attach House Bill and Senate Bill on Granicus to the legislation as an attachment for reference for my colleagues? Okay, so I'll give you a copy of those two bills, and then they'll be on Granicus for you to look at.
Yeah, that's not going to help me tonight, though, if you go.
So we're going to vote on it. Are we going to vote on it on first reader, and then there'll be a motion to suspend the rules, and if you don't vote, it has to be unanimous. So, okay. No, it's not open for the public. Sorry, and I'm sure you know more than we all know. I said I'm definite you know more than we all know about it because you know a lot. Yep. So we got a motion and a second on first reader. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Is there a motion to suspend the rules to allow this passage of this resolution at the meeting of its introduction?
So moved.
Second.
So all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, 2 noes. Motion does not pass. So it's on first reader.
Yeah. Okay.
On to the next. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The next item on the agenda is O-20-19, dwellings above the ground floor of non-residential uses in the B1 Convenience Shopping District and B2 Community Shopping District, for the purpose of creating standards for dwellings permitted above non-residential uses in certain commercial districts and matters generally relating to regulation of such dwellings.
Is there a motion to withdraw O-20-19? Alderman Arnett?
Yes, I would like to withdraw. The Planning Commission took this up and they had some issues with it, and then I had the opportunity to speak with Dr. Nash and Tom Smith, and I'm pretty comfortable that we don't need this legislation, so I'd like to withdraw it.
So you need a second for that?
Second.
Okay. All those in favour of the withdrawal say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is O-28-19, tattoo parlors, for the purpose of including the use tattoo parlor to the tables of permitted uses for certain zoning districts.
So move.
Second.
To postpone, are you
Second. It's on
to
second
postpone
reader.
it?
No.
Motion?
It's on first. It's. Yeah.
We're on tattoo parlors. Right?
Okay.
So it's up for second reader.
Okay. I thought you had it down for a postponement.
Moved it on
no?
second reader, and Alderwoman Tierney seconded it.
Okay. Any discussion?
Tattoo parlors? Oh. Rhonda?
Did you move to
Yeah, just moved it on second reader.
Yeah.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had Dr. Nash do some research on this as far as Ward 3 is concerned. And the feedback I got back from the Greater Parole Community Association was that we would not oppose it as long as this as long as the tattoo parlors are either within the Annapolis Design District, Upper West Street or along West Street, and the Moreland Parkway, Gibraltar area. So I had communicated with Alderwoman Tierney as well. So I think we're fine with this as far as Ward 3 is concerned.
So there's no one's postponing, it's on the table. Alderman Arnett had his hand up. Yeah.
I wish I had his money if you're looking at me.
I'm sorry, Alderman Pan, sorry.
I'm much better looking, though.
Sorry.
Yeah, that is a laugh.
Everyone had their hand up there.
If I might, they don't want it any closer in than Gibraltar or no farther out than Gibraltar. Coming out West Street, they want it
Well, if it's all the way out by Gibraltar.
no farther out than Gibraltar, or they don't want it any closer to town than Gibraltar.
I think that there's no issue with it being within the Gibraltar Moreland Parkway district, if you want to call it that. Is that right, Dr. Nash? Thank you. That's my understanding.
Design district goes that far?
No, it's.
Good evening. So the proposed ordinance would allow it in Inner West Street where it's Zone MX, and then parts of Upper West Street, including Chinkopin Round Road, the Design District area, which I think the Greater Pearl Community Association was fine with, and then also around Gibraltar. But additionally, in other parts of West Street, from Parole Street to Old Solomon's Island Road. And I think that's the part they were worried about. Exactly. But that is Zone BCE, so it would be allowed in that area. So I also want to point out that the Planning Commission hasn't signed they've heard this and made a decision, but they have not signed their findings, if that's something you wanted to see.
You said it's allowed on West Street between Parole Street and Old Solomon's Island?
Yes, all along that first, right along the street is where
I think I missed that part.
Where it's Zone BCE.
And that's why the rules committee did
not.
Okay.
I put that in your email.
We were good with the Annapolis Design District. We were good with Moreland Parkway, Gibraltar. We were good with Old Solomon's Island Road, but it wasn't my understanding. Then I apologize. I missed that part between Parole Street and Old Solomon's Island on West Street.
Right.
Okay.
So I responded to your email, and I thought you were going to take that information back to Greater Pearl Community Association.
Then I was derelict in my duties. No, I'm going to have to take that part back.
Okay. I think I did send you a map.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
On that map, the red BCE area is where it would be allowed.
Okay, so I know they would be opposed to that area, definitely, because we still have a couple of residences along that area as well. So no, I know that would be an opposition.
Okay.
So I'm going to go opposite sides of the room. Alderman Gay next, and then Alderman Payon.
Thank you.
So just to correct me if I'm wrong, so the legislation, I just want to be sure again, is restricting tattoo shops only to the West Street corridor, correct? Is there a reason in particular, Alderwoman Tierney, that you did?
I have to, yeah, well, I'm not in.
I'll let you answer that.
Yes, I really need to establish the background of this because it looks like a not in my backyard thing. At the corner of Calvert and West Street, Calvert and West Street, there's a building that's been vacant for a while. It's just, it has some historical significance, or perhaps, I don't. So there's a tattoo place going in there, which brought attention. No, there's just attention on where did that come from, and what happened. What we learned is that tattoo parlors were under a category called personal care establishments, which has a whole list of where personal care establishments can go, which is a lot of places. So I talked to Dr. Nash and said we decided that we should pull it out. Tattoo parlors could be considered a little bit different than a hair salon, perhaps. It needed its own category. And then the question was, well, where are they allowed? and that would be MX, mixed use zone, which is where it is. The problem, the reason why it created a reaction was that there's part of the mixed use zone that intersects or overlaps the historic district. So, so we just thought it was smart to pull it out and then identify where they exist and where they will continue to exist. Is that a fair statement?
Right, we separated it out so it is its own use in the table of uses. And then
Can I ask why you both felt that it was not? Personal care.
Yeah, personal.
I'm not sure why you don't see the equivalency in getting a haircut, a tattoo, or it is your personal choice and it is personal care. And I don't see how the business differs from any of the others and how they would negatively impact the communities around them.
Well, I think that it was based on the reaction of the public.
What public?
So, if
to just, and then also the existing tattoo parlor was also the initiator of this because he didn't want the competition.
I always get back to this issue when it comes to, ward-related issues, because if my constituents came to me and they said, I don't know, we don't want ice cream shops in our ward, I would submit legislation that says Ward 6 doesn't want ice cream shops in their ward. I wouldn't make a rule for the entire city to go by that would prohibit growth of businesses. I'm not understanding the purpose of this, but that's just my personal opinion.
No,
also,
I was just following the guidance of planning and zoning. They know categories and comparable cities and identification, so I was following their guidance and pulled it out.
Yeah. But under this, if you wanted to put
that.
a tattoo shop at I don't know, the corner of Spy and Hilltop or something, I'm just throwing it out there. Technically, you wouldn't be able to do it under this if this was.
What is the zoning of that area that you're talking about?
Zoning.
If it's MX, mixed use.
So I'm going to keep going across the room. Alderman Pounds next, and then Alderman Savage, and then back to
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be quick. Now, where does the, is it the Arts District? What do we call them?
Inner West Street?
Yeah. Where on Inner West Street does the Arts District end?
where does it end?
Yes.
It goes from Ram's Head all the way down to the Westgate Circle.
No.
To the circle?
No, I'm sorry. Is that right?
Calvert Street.
Oh, Calvert Street to Westgate Circle.
Okay. Then the part of West Street in my ward my ward's not really directly affected by this. It was a little hard to read, to tell, but it would appear that Ward 2 would not have any tattoo shops. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I don't particularly, not the worst thing in the world, but just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Alderman Savage.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. If any of you want to do this in your ward, go for it. I'll support you in that. But the way it's written is it would stop tattoo parlors for the entire city, except for West Street. And I don't think that's fair to those of us who have no desire at all to limit those. And I've had nobody tell me that I need to limit them in my ward. And my wife has a tattoo. I want to get one. She wants to get more. Most of our friends, to be honest, have tattoos. I just think it's a bit too extreme. I'll support you if you want to change it. And if there's an amendment we can pass to limit it to just particular wards, that I definitely want to do that. I just think we need to go back to at least postpone it for a little while.
I believe that was an unintended consequence of this. I think we just wanted to differentiate the MX zone versus the historic district, and that they're allowed in MX, mixed use. So wherever mixed use is, but I didn't know it was so limiting, or we shouldn't restrict. I mean, we are a sailing town.
Sailors get
we have
tattoos.
a history of tattoos, but
the impulse was to prohibit that use in the historic district, but we don't do zoning by whether you're in the historic district or not in the historic district. So we were then tasked with, if we want to restrict this use, where are appropriate places to restrict it to? The Planning Commission did not feel that the use should be restricted, and they recommended that the ordinance not be approved.
Oh, so they have made a decision.
So can I just get some clarification on that? Because
Yeah.
Regina we had it down to postpone it because of fine.
Yes, I thought it was going to be postponed because it hasn't, I don't think Rules has made a decision either.
Okay.
Rules has not heard it because.
Yeah.
Right.
So we got to move. Yeah.
City Code Section 2.16, we had
Right.
to put it
A motion on the floor.
Right. We're going to keep those long hairs and druggies out. Yeah.
We're still in discussion, right?
So we got a motion and a second to postpone. Alderman
Yeah, well,
Finlayson.
My question is for Dr. Nash. Can we get a map of the MX zones in the city? Is the only MX zone, it's not on
Inner West Street is the only MX zone, and then BCE is along Upper West Street in two main sections, one around where the design district is along Chinkapin, but also further up Upper West Street between Pearl Street and Old Solomon's Island Road. But I can provide a map, no problem.
Okay, that would be great. And I think we postponed our action because we wanted to hear from Alderwoman Pendle Charles, since
Okay,
it's
so,
her ward that's being impacted.
Alderman Arnett was next. Are you good? And then.
Well, I made a motion to postpone for two reasons. One, we do need the Planning and Zoning Commission, but clearly I was under the misunderstanding. I thought there was still going to be allowed in the more general category of beauty and health aids, and so I think that misunderstanding on my part totally changes my attitude towards voting for or against this. But I do think we need to postpone to follow proper procedures.
I'll second or third.
Okay, it's got a second
whatever.
already. Alderman Pendle Charles, and we can take a vote
Thank you,
after
Mr.
that.
Mayor.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I'm clear on the record to my Ward 3 residents and those who live within that area. I know they do not, for whatever reason, and we can go back and many questions can be answered through history. But anyway, and I'll leave it at that. But no, that BCE district between those two streets, no. We're not in favor of that. Thank you.
Okay, so let's take a vote on this to postpone. All those in favor of postponement say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is O-34-19 Planning and Zoning Appeal Procedures for the purpose of clarifying the procedures governing an appeal of decision of the Planning and Zoning Director, making stylistic changes and generally related to appeal procedures.
Okay, Alderman Arnett.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask this be postponed to the first council meeting in April. I've not had an opportunity because of various things going on to complete discussions with the chair of the Board of Appeals. The Planning Commission has recommended some changes to this legislation, which I would like to make, but don't want to complete that until I've had a chance to coordinate with the chairman of the Board of Appeals.
Okay, could I get a second on that, please? Second. Okay, all those in favor of the postponement say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, the next item on the agenda is the referral of O-40-19 Capital Budget and Capital Improvement Program Maintenance Facilities to the Planning Commission.
So move.
Second.
All right. So we're referring O-40 to the Planning Commission. Got a second on that?
Yes, there was a second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
I believe, Mr. Mayor, the agenda is completed.
Anything else for good order?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I understand you'll be leaving town tomorrow for an unfortunate reason. I would ask that anyone present or viewing this say an extra prayer tonight, for not just for your safety, but for that things go well with your mom at home, and all the best. And then I'd move to adjourn.
Yes.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
All right, let's
Thank
hear
you,
it for Teresa.
Teresa.
Teresa, don't kill it.
We have an announcement. Alderman Gay, you want to make the announcement about Thursday?
Yeah, sorry. So this Thursday at the Eastport Recreational Center, me and Sheila will be hosting a gun violence forum for our community to come out and speak about incidents that they've had, how we can work better as a body to assist them with the violence that continues to happen in our cities, and what we can do with organizations in our city to help that. So it's this Thursday at 6 o'clock, and it'll be at the Eastport Community Center, just off of President Street. Perfect.
And we apologize for the confusion, because there's 3 different events going on at that same time. So.
All those in favor of adjourned, say aye.
Aye.
Motion. Meeting adjourned.